oil. We'll show you a second on where I put the one spot of grease. And a bottle of grease should last you the rest of your life and pass it down to your children. I don't care how many rifles you have. This should never be too much. You should literally have the rest of your life this one bottle. That's all you need. So I go ahead and put a little lube on there. And sometimes I'll just rub it through my fingers to make sure we take it out. And then I put one drop right here on the extractor. The extractor has a really stiff spring. And work it just with my fingers a couple of times. And then I come in here and wipe out the actual bolt face. So do that, get that all done. Then we come here to the charging handle here. This area up front, like I said, you want to clean that out really, really good. Put a little lube in there. Always helps it keep from breaking up. And it does not have to be perfect, guys. You're just going to get dirty again. Now you'll notice on this gun, there's a little wear point all the way down the center. That's a good idea to put a little drop of lube and just wipe it down with your fingers. It does not need to be wet like an AR. We're just talking about like that. Do you need to do that? Hell no. I've read them dry as a bone. So then I'm looking on here. I've got a little spot right here. I've got a spot where I've got a little mark. And over here, just put a little, wipe from back here with my finger. Put it on both sides. When it comes to here, I go ahead and I clean it out real good with a brush. I go sop it in there real good, and I just spin a few Q-tips in there and take any fouling that's in there. Remember, that's where all the fouling is going to be. When it comes to the back here, this is where the bolt locks in. So it actually locks in like this. And that's what makes the gun work properly. So you do want to put a little bit of grease, and we're talking a dab on there, and then just take your Q-tip and roll around the insides. Why do I like grease right here? One, it's protected. So that's a sealed area where not a lot of dust and fouling is going to get into. But two, it allows it to be able to just be painted real nice and easy. Boom, boom, done. Okay? And it keeps it in that one spot. And that's high temperature grease. You can use axle grease off your car. It doesn't really matter. It works just fine. And then a couple little spots where you see any marks on the gun, you can just take, and I just take it and put it on my fingers and wipe it through. That seems to work just fine. Okay? So once we've done all that, we can start putting the gun back together. Now remember, you can take off this plastic guard. It's a lot easier. This plastic guard right here, just you pop it and it snaps off. And it is really easy to get off on the guns that do not have scopes. The guns that have scopes, I recommend not taking it off. There's no reason to take it off. You can spin it back and forth and wipe down what you need. It's a pain to get on and off with the scope on there if you have the small scope rings. Remember, I like my scopes right on the gun as much as I humanly can. And if you do that, this is a little hard to get on and off. So I just tend to leave it on. As far as the bolt and firing pin, there is never a reason to take apart this item. There's no reason. Don't do it. Gas block, don't do it. We've cleaned it up real good, made it ready to go. We're going to go ahead and drop the bolt back in. Now this is the trickiest part of owning a Mini-14. So we're going to put the round point goes out. We're going to drop it in where there's a little hook in the very back of the bolt. We're going to take it and drop it in there. And then we're going to wiggle it around until we get it to drop in. Sometimes that's a little easier. You'll kind of play around with it until you get it to, and it's, now I'm going to take it out again because it just kind of falls in. It's a little easier if you just kind of start with it facing down, so the nub is going to face down. You're going to bring it in and rotate it back in, and that usually seems to work for me. And it just falls right into place. So it's this motion here. So I'm at least leaning it down on this side. So I'm taking the bolt, tilting it down, up, falling in, and rotating back up. And it seems to fall right in for me when I do that. And it just falls right in. Once you've done that, go ahead and put it in the gun. Make sure it's closing properly. And then go ahead and leave it kind of halfway in the back here. We're going to take our charging handle now. Charging handle goes on there. Slides on there. And now it's locked into place. Bolt goes forward. You're all set there. Pretty simple, right? Now we're going to go ahead and take our spring. Our spring is going to go in the gun. This is a tricky part. Wear safety glasses, whatever you want to do on this one. And you're just going to push the spring all the way in and then make sure that it locks in the pin in the back. Okay? Now we're going to do that one more time. Now I did drop the pin, so I'm going to have to grab that pin real quick right off the bat. The pin and cup mechanism. So the cup has a little flat spot on the bottom there. You'll go ahead and just slide that guy in. So the hole is facing towards all the parts there. You'll take the pin, goes right here, and we'll move it around. A lot of guns, that stays nice and solid. I don't recommend taking it out. I don't know why you need to, ever. So I go ahead, put my spring back in, and remember, we're just going to crunch the spring up with our fingers, get it all the way to the back to where the bolt's going to go in there, and we always make sure the hook is facing towards the barrel. So this hook right here, you can kind of see it's cut out like this. You want the hook not on top, on the bottom. Okay, and then we go ahead, we can kind of nice and easy run the slide. Remember, it won't run perfectly until it's in the stock. We want to just make sure it's free at that point. Then we can go ahead and take it. I usually don't put the side mechanism back in until it's in the stock. And this gives us a chance to look at our stock. So our stock has a metal reinforcement area all the way through here. This is where a lot of fouling will build up. And you can see on my hands, I got a little black on my hands. I never make my guns spotless. I don't care that much. They're just going to get dirty again. So I go in there, wipe that down real good, take a little solvent, clean that out, and then I'll put a little strip of oil on my finger, and there's a little indentation in the very center right here that bumps up and rides along that bottom and keeps that bolt and weight mechanism sliding into the piston. So that's an area where I do put a little lube on there. I just sit there and take it and just put one little dab of lube on there, and then I run it on my finger all the way to the back, and that is literally all you have to do with that area. Take a little dirt, get any dirt or grime out of there, and then go ahead and drop it back in the stock. The way this works, we're going to take it, we're going to slide it on the end first, so hopefully you guys can see that. You're going to slide it on the end. It has a little groove that it fits in. You slide it in the end and drop the stock down in there. Once you're at this point, we can go ahead and flip her upside down. We're going to take our trigger mechanism, and our trigger mechanism has two little hooks on both sides. Remember, the safety does have to be on, and the hammer has to be cocked, so if you released either one of those, you do have to recock it. And the way to release the trigger, you have to relock this, and then open it back up to put it back in the gun. So if you haven't done that, it should just stay where it is right now. I lift it all the way up. I drop it into the inside of the stock here, and you're going to want to line up your magazine area with the little notch in the stock here, and it should just fall right in. Once you've done that, go ahead and lift it up so it's not supported on the scope there, and crack it. Once we've cracked it, we can go ahead and check the operation of the gun. Okay, so if it's operating properly, we've checked it. And like I said, I always am a big fan of the 3 check. Look down inside the barrel, make sure we're good to go there. I can go ahead and put the parts back in for the bolt catch. Remember, we're going to start with the little piston. The piston has a groove on one side. That groove has to face towards the back. So we're going to go ahead and slide that guy in. And sorry guys, I can't do this part on camera because I can't hardly do it when I'm not looking at a camera because it's really tiny. And like I said, not a necessity. Remember, when these guys go in, the point here faces in towards the inside hole of the gun. The point on the front faces towards the plunger, and it has one little groove here that slides into a slot. If you've done this before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We push that guy in. Oh. And I did forget, guys. This one is one of those ones where this has to be done before the stock goes on. So just slide out your trigger mechanism again. Go ahead and pop your stock off. Slide this guy in. you can put all the parts together, but you cannot get the cover back on until you slide this guy back on. So remember, the groove goes up. This one just pops right on. I don't need to do anything. Go ahead and put your stock back on, back in, trigger mechanism back in, lock it back. Now what we want to see is that we press that little button that it holds open the bolt. If we release it, it slides forward. Now if you do have the little groove here, the little tool here, I just take a little bit of blue Loctite. So I'm going to take a little bit of blue Loctite on the end of the screw. At the very tip, that's all it needs, just one little drop. And I screw that guy back in. Once I've got that screwed back in, I go ahead and tighten it down. And I just snug it up, you know, snug. Not over tightening or anything else like that. And that blue Loctite holds it in just fine. I've never lost one of those. I do thread them so they basically only go to one point. Once I've done that, I can go ahead and lock it back with my screw. Make sure it slides forward. I can go ahead and make sure the safety is engaged and working properly. We're going to put it in a safe direction. We're going to go ahead, hold the safety, pull the safety forward, pull the trigger once we're facing a safe direction. We're going to go ahead and rack the gun with the trigger depressed. Make sure it's engages and fire again. I usually do that twice just to make sure we're all set to go. We hear the click, the reset, and fire again. This one has an amazing trigger on it. Just about 3.5 pounds on this guy, which is where I like them. Now, they will not reset until you reset the, you know, the actual safety won't reset unless the gun is cocked. So just remember that, guys. So if you are doing it, and a lot of times what I'll do is when I'm at home, all my guns set in the safe with the trigger depressed so there's no weight on that spring. Whether that's a good idea or a bad idea, doesn't matter. First time you rack it, the gun's going to go into battery, cock the hammer, and everything's going to be good. So guys, last thing I'd recommend is just taking an oily rag, just with a couple drops, wiping down any of your blue guns. Your stainless steel guns don't need it as much, but it's always a good idea just to, as a rust preventative on the guns, especially if you've taken them out and got them in the, you know, in the rain when you're out competing. Your scopes, just make sure you wipe them down. You know, it's never a bad idea just to have a little bit. They're all aluminum, so usually they don't have any problem at all. But the scope rings, I always buy the stainless steel scope rings. So again, wipe those down. Make sure they're in good shape, and just look for areas where you might have any rust or anything like that. So as always, guys, like, subscribe, tell your friends. If you have any questions about the Mini-14, come look here. I've been shooting Mini-14s for, I have no idea, so many years. So we're going to talk a little bit about why I like Mini-14s better than AR-15s in a future video, and how to do mag changes a couple different ways that I think is kind of the best way of all the worlds. And a little trick on your Tapco magazines. So how to make them function properly even with the bolt closed. So as always, guys, have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.